Today's project, a new one for me, is to carve Antler using my Shaper Origin CNC router. My ranch is in the Elk River Valley near Steamboat Springs, Colorado. We regularly have a herd of elk running through our ranch. My little project will be made from elk antler. This beautiful knife was a Christmas gift from my wife. The profile of the knife will be milled into the elk antler, and the elk antler is going to sit on top of a display box I made. To cut the profile of the knife into the antler with the Shaper Origin, I needed a digital profile of the knife. I used the Shaper trace to make that. First, I made an outline on a piece of paper. Here's the trace tool, and after a little bit of fiddling around, it makes a nice digital file right to Shaper Origin. If you're interested, I have other videos that show that process in more detail. Before carving the antler, I made a test carving in a piece of oak, and it ended up fitting the knife pretty well, so I had some confidence this would work. After some trial and error, the antler is securely mounted to the Shaper Workstation. This is the screen of the Shaper Origin. It shows that digital profile and where I've placed that on the antler for cutting. The biggest challenge in cutting this file is that the cutting surface was pretty far below the workstation surface. I can't clamp the antler any higher or the Shaper Origin will bump into it, but the part I want to cut is pretty far. It's down here. To cut that deep, I told a little lie to my Shaper Origin. I clamped the bit in the Origin so it actually protruded below the base of the router, then told the Origin that that position was 0. That let me more fully utilize the available vertical travel of the Shaper Origin. This requires extra caution because there'll be a spinning router bit exposed even when the Shaper Origin says it's fully retracted. Speaking of caution, I didn't want elk dust in my eyes, and I didn't want to breathe elk dust, so safety goggles and a mask. The milling was pretty similar to hardwood. I took small passes because it's pretty tough stuff. I did, I think, 1/8 of an inch at a time. When I researched this project, I read some kind of worrisome warnings about the smell of antler when it's being milled. I even had some people say you should do it outside. I didn't find it that terrible. It was a little bit unpleasant, maybe a little bit like rotten meat, but it wasn't very strong, so it wasn't that bad at all. And we have a profile milled into the antler. Earlier, I showed you that little test cut I made in a piece of oak, and I got a perfect fit on that, but using the same digital file to cut into the antler, I did not get a perfect fit. I think the reason for that is that the antler was not, I just wasn't able to clamp it level into the workstation, and you can see there's about 1/8 of an inch gap where I need more space for the handle so the whole knife can shift back a little bit. All right, so I'm gonna have to fix a kind of a bonehead error when I made this thing. It doesn't fit perfectly, I showed you that. And what I should have done is I should have brought the knife down from the house as I was doing the milling and checked the fit before I unclamped it from the Shaper Origin. That way I could have just adjusted the depth of the cut there, added a little negative offset to cut a little bit more out of that end. Can't do it now, not with the Shaper Origin, because there's no way I could clamp this thing back up in the workstation in the right alignment. So instead, I'm going to go in with some rasps and files, and I'm just going to have to, file away about 1/8 of an inch and shift that whole knife back a little bit. To do my handwork, I tried clamping the antler to a vise. That didn't work perfectly. It was moving around a bit. What did work perfectly was a holdfast. I used a couple of rags for padding and then just popped a holdfast down pretty tight, and that held it very solidly to the workbench and made it pretty easy to work with the rasp and files and a little bit of sandpaper. It took maybe 15-20 minutes of handwork to get a pretty nice fit. That 1/8 inch gap is completely gone. Since you've made it this far in the video, how about punching the like button and think about subscribing to my channel? I'd appreciate that. Thank you. The inside of the antler is porous. I used several coats of CA glue with accelerator between each coat to fill that in, kind of like what you'd do if you were filling in a knot on a piece of wood. It worked fine. After the CA, I did a little bit of hand sanding, and I gave the whole antler a nice coat of shellac, which brought out the color quite nicely in the entire antler. The finished product. Hope to see you back here soon. Thanks. Bye.